Welcome to the Inside Source Executive Interview Series. My name is Dawn Tura. I'm President and CEO of Sourcing Industry Group. I'm so excited to introduce you to Brian Biro. Now, Brian is really well known as a motivational speaker. He's also a father, a writer, and he's produced 9 books, and one of them made it to the top 16 on the Amazon Top 100. But what Brian brings to us is he's a breakthrough coach, and he's been a frequent speaker here at SIG, and he's always sought after. And so, Brian, a couple things I just wanted to cover with you. Let's start with the pressures facing today's supply chain and sourcing professionals. I mean, it's everything from geopolitical risk to cybersecurity to somebody just ruining your reputation of your company by the companies that we source with. What kind of information or leadership tips would you give someone like that?
You know, it's easy to think that we're in our own little world, that it's really tougher in sourcing than anywhere else, but it's tough everywhere because of the acceleration of change. Really, when you talk about risk, you're talking about massive change. So how do you become a leader who deals with change? How do you build around you a culture that looks at the fact that within every adversity is planted the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit? The very risks that are challenging people probably are from organizations that have seen some opportunity in risk. So it really comes down to a few different things that you can do that can make the biggest difference. I like to talk about controlling your controllables because I don't know about you, Don, but I'm not very good at controlling my uncontrollables. So as a leader, how do you create this mentality that says, bring it on? We can handle anything. In fact, we're going to create change. We're going to create new ideas. We're going to be innovative. And the first controllable that you really need to take charge of is your energy. Ultimately, I don't care what organization you're with, what company, to everyone you lead, your energy is your example. And I like to think of it in I'm a simple kind of a guy, so I use a simple metric. When you think about energy on a 10-point scale, with 1 being comatose, 10 being you at your best, when you've done the best you've ever done, an incredibly powerful question is, where are you living your life on that 10-point scale?
Okay, but most leaders come at it and they're probably around a 3 or 4 because they're feeling so battened down and that the whole organization is looking at them to avoid this risk. So how do you get someone who feels all this pressure to get up to a 9 or 10?
Well, it comes down to, first, you got to understand that your energy is your choice. Because most people think energy is outside of them. They think of it as like the weather. Hope the weather's nice for my flight back home. But your energy is your choice. And there's really 3 powerful ways to change your energy by choice consistently. And you got to practice them to develop that higher level. Number 1, as simple as it sounds, change the way you move.
Okay.
When you move differently, your energy changes instantly. You sit up a little taller, you put a smile on your face, all of a sudden your energy rises in that 10-point scale. It's impossible to be down when you're full of movement. What that means in your organization is move. Move, get out with your people, move your legs. Don't be stuck in this kind of sunken down kind of a place. Secondly, more powerful than that is purpose. The reason we get away from our energy is we forget about our purpose. We get caught up in day to day. But when you are driven by purpose, when you are focused on purpose, you are an unstoppable force. You ever notice when you're doing something when you feel full of purpose, how energy's no problem?
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't matter how much sleep you have.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter when you're doing something you love to do, energy's no problem. But the key is to focus on your purpose every day. Ask yourself, what am I truly grateful about in my life? The word actually has a secret in it, especially if you're not a very good speller. What you're grateful about has within it the capacity to make you grateful. When you focus on your priorities, they're the pathway to purpose. And any great leader I've ever seen has an extraordinary level of focus on their purpose every day. Whenever I speak, there's one thing I have to have with me, and it's a picture of my wife and my daughters, because they're my purpose. And right before I speak, I go to that purpose. Corny as it sounds, I do it. And I spend time with each of them, and it changes me. It doesn't matter how many flights I miss, doesn't matter how I've been feeling. If I don't give the audience everything I've got, then I'm not giving my purpose everything I've got. And I won't do that. And so energy is no problem when you come from that place. So first, change the way you move. 2, purpose. Incidentally, the more purposeful you are, the more you move. Mm-hmm. And the third is to ask yourself better questions. Instead of, why me? Why not? Our lives are really determined by the quality of the questions we ask ourselves. Our teams are determined by the quality of the questions we ask each other.
So our team, we used to always have a yeah, but person. And we said, let's stop the yeah, buts and let's go yes, and. and
Absolutely.
keep building on yes and what else can we do and what else can we do, and it really did change our conversations as well.
Absolutely. And builds bridges, but builds builds falls. You're going to fall down with but. So yeah, but negates everything you said before, and creates that bridge. It creates possibility. That's what we're.
But
going
leaders
for.
are going to fail. There's going to be failure at some point for most leaders, especially around risk these days. So how does a leader continue to lead when they've had a failure? What do you recommend? How do they bounce back from that?
Well, it comes to a principle that I call blame busting. The funny thing about risk, Don, is that if you're going to be successful in dealing with risk, you have to take risks. You have to take your team and get them to be unafraid to try things that maybe they've never tried before, to do things. And you want intelligent risk, but you want to take risks. If you do what you've always done, you're behind the 8 ball. You're going backwards. So that comes down to the most destructive word in the language of leadership is blame. And here's why. I want to ask you, think about blame in the context of time. Is blame about the past, the present, or the future?
It's always the past.
It's always the past. Whenever you are in blame, you are in the past where you have no potential for new solution, new innovation. So when you live in blame, you live in the past. So what that means is blame busters, I like to call them blame busters, recognize that we're going to mess up. We're human. We're going to try things. If we've tried things we've never done before, some are going to work and some are not going to work. But then they move out of blame, out of the past, and say, what did we learn? What are we going to do next? The reason we're able to do this interview with all this light comes from Thomas Edison, the greatest blame buster of all time. He took 4 years to develop the light bulb. That's a lot of failure, Don. Imagine a salesperson who went 4 years before they got their first sale. But when he was almost there, and another quote-unquote failure hit, they asked him, how can you stand all this failure? And he said, are you kidding? We just learned another way not to make a light bulb. That's what we've got to do. Understand, Michael Jordan missed more last-second shots than any other player. All right, and every time he took the next one. So each one gets you. It's called teleological movement. What that means is when we shoot a rocket from the Earth to the moon, it doesn't go straight. Any more than if you hold the wheel on your car straight, you're going in the ditch. It depends on feedback. All right, feedback gets you to where you're going as long as you don't give up because of failure. My mentor was the greatest coach of all time, John Wooden, and he said that success is peace of mind that comes from knowing you've given the best of which you're capable. In other words, his definition of success says there is no failure. There's something to learn and something to move and something to get better. We live with that. We're not afraid of failure.
But what about forgiveness? I mean, I see a lot of people not forgiving each other and not forgiving themselves. And I think then, if I can't forgive an employee for making a mistake, they can't trust me.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Forgiveness is that side of blame busting. It says, we are human. I am glad you tried to do something. It didn't work out. What can we learn from it? Let's move on. I love, there's a great quote from the old Alabama football coach, Bear Bryant, that puts it in a great perspective for leaders to develop a team that will take good risks and deal with risk like bring it on. Bear Bryant said, I'm just an old country plowhand. He said, but if I've learned one thing, he says, if you want to get a team's heart to beat as one, he says, when things go great, they did it.
Absolutely.
Things go pretty good, we did it. Things go bad, I did it.
I failed to lead.
In other words, I got to change me. And what that does to your team, when you don't blame yourself and beat yourself up, you take responsibility. Responsibility is something you take. Credit is something you give. And when you do that, it creates a different kind of a loyalty, different kind of energy in your team, a different sense of, boy, I can make a difference here. If I mess up, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to try to learn from that and move forward. Forgiveness is huge.
Good. Well, I'm glad you agree with that. I mean, our mantra is take risk, but fail quickly. If it's going to fail, so many people just don't want to give up because they don't want to say that I was wrong. And so our mantra is always, try it. If it doesn't work, it's okay. Just fail quickly. Don't drag it out. And don't try and fix something that's obviously not going to work. So just fail quickly and then move on to the next one.
And it's brilliant because we can beat ourselves up, and there's no point in that. That serves no constructive purpose. But you can learn from everything. As I said again, within every adversity is planted the seed of equivalent or greater benefit. When you think about it, in another month or so, it's going to be Thanksgiving. And that holiday, most people say, let's be thankful for all the great things that happen in our life, and we should. But I think we should be just as thankful for all the bumps in the road, the mistakes we made, the things that didn't work out, because isn't it true that from those we usually grow the most?
Oh, absolutely. Yep, we learn from our lessons.
That's right.
Yep. I love that. So I just want to thank you for joining us today. I know you're going to jump on a plane and go inspire another audience, but you have been such an inspiration. And I had a lot of people after this morning's plenary sessions talking about being more present, being in the here and now. And these are executives who are on the fly, and a bunch of them were talking among themselves saying, you know what, I need to be more present with my wife. I need to be more present with my team. I need to start thinking about now, not the future, not the past, but be right here, right now. So to get them that inspired that they stood around after you were done talking about it,
That's great.
just meant the world to me. So
that touches my heart. Thank you so much.
thank you. And thank you again for joining us.
You're just wonderful.
Thank
SIG does
you.
an incredible job. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This has been another edition of the Inside Source Executive Interview Series. This is Dawn Tura, and thank you for joining us.